Their wedding anniversary meant everything to Sarah. For Mark, it was just pressure. But this year, he'd actually tried. He booked Cupid's cabin, a ridiculously expensive, secluded Airbnb deep in the snowy mountains. Sarah, ever the optimist, squeezed his arm. "It's perfect, Mark, like a fairy tale." She didn't notice how the key scratched loudly against the rusted lock before the heavy oak door finally creaked open. Inside, the air was thick. It didn't smell stale exactly. It smelled overwhelmingly of dried roses and something else underneath. Something metallic, like old copper coins. Mark tried to shake off the unease. He lit the pre-laid fire while Sarah unpacked the wine. The flames caught quickly, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to stretch just a little too far up the walls. They settled on the rug for a pre-dinner toast. Sarah raised her glass, her eyes sparkling in the firelight. "To us," she whispered. "Forever." "Forever," he echoed. He took a sip. The wine tasted sour, almost vinegar-like, but he swallowed it anyway, not wanting to ruin the mood she was trying so hard to create. While Sarah went to the small kitchen to prepare dinner, Mark wandered around the main room. He stopped in front of a large, ornate mirror hung over a heavy wooden chest. The mirror was old. The silver backing was flaking at the edges, creating black spots. As he leaned in to fix his hair, for a fraction of a second, his reflection didn't move with him. He recoiled, blinking hard. It must have been the firelight playing tricks. He turned away, his heart hammering against his ribs, and almost bumped into Sarah. "You jumpy tonight, honey?" she asked, her voice velvety smooth. She wasn't smiling. She was just staring at him, the kitchen knife held loosely in her hand. Just tired from the drive," Mark lied, managing a weak laugh. He steered her back toward the kitchen, desperate to get away from that mirror and the strange vibe in the room. Dinner was an ordeal. The steak was rare, too rare for Mark's liking, and the silence was heavier than the snow falling outside. Sarah just kept watching him chew. "Happy wedding anniversary," she said suddenly, sliding a small velvet-wrapped box across the rough wooden table toward him. "Open it now." Inside wasn't a watch or cufflinks. It was a blackened human molar, wrapped in a lock of blonde hair that looked suspiciously like Sarah's, tied with a rotted red ribbon. Mark shoved his chair back, the wood screeching against the floor. "What the hell is this, Sarah?" He looked up, but Sarah wasn't in her chair anymore. The cabin plunged into darkness. The fire in the hearth didn't just die down, it vanished instantly, as if sucked into a vacuum. Absolute pitch black. Mark fumbled for his phone, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The flashlight being cut through the dark, illuminating dust, and the sudden realization that he was completely alone. "Sarah!" he yelled, his voice cracking. The only response was the wind howling outside, battering the cabin walls like fists demanding entry. He heard a sound, not from outside, but from beneath him. A scraping, rhythmic thud coming from the floorboards near the kitchen. Mark crept toward the kitchen. He'd seen a rug there earlier. He kicked it aside, revealing a trap door set flush with the floor, secured by a heavy iron slide bolt. The scraping stopped. Mark knew he shouldn't open it. Every horror movie instinct screamed at him to run. But Sarah might be down there. He grabbed the cold iron bolt. He threw the door open. The smell hit him first, the metallic tang of old blood, so strong he tasted it. He shone the light down a steep, rickety staircase disappearing into the earth. "Sarah." He began to descend. The air grew colder with every step. The walls of the root cellar were raw earth, weeping moisture that glistened in his unsteady light. At the bottom, the space opened up. It wasn't a root cellar. It was a shrine. Dozens of dried rose bouquets hung from the low ceiling, just like upstairs. But here, they were decayed, black. In the center of the dirt floor sat a crude wooden chair, and sitting in it, facing away from him, was Sarah. She was wearing the red dress she'd arrived in, but it looked wrong. "Sarah, baby, come on, we have to go." He reached out to touch her shoulder. The moment his fingers brushed the fabric of her dress, she began to hum. It was a low, vibrating monotone. She slowly turned her head. It was Sarah's face, but the eyes, they were entirely black. No whites, just pools of obsidian liquid. "My love," she whispered, the voice sounding like it was coming from the bottom of a well, echoing 2 beats behind her moving lips. "You came down to keep us company." Mark scrambled backward, tripping over his own feet and falling onto the damp dirt. He dropped the phone. The light spun wildly, strobing across the cellar walls. He grabbed the phone and bolted for the stairs. He could hear her behind him, not walking, slithering, something dragging itself across the dirt floor. He slammed the trapdoor shut and rammed the iron bolt home just as something heavy slammed against the wood from beneath, shaking the entire floor. He didn't stop. He ran for the front door, grabbing his keys from the table. He threw himself against the heavy oak door, twisting the knob frantically. Locked. It wouldn't budge. The key wouldn't turn. He banged his fists against the wood, screaming for help that he knew would never come. Behind him, the cabin began to change. The smell of roses overpowered everything. The temperature plummeted, his breath freezing into solid clouds before his eyes. The trapdoor in the kitchen didn't just open again, it exploded upward, splinters of wood showering the room, and out of the darkness, she rose. Sarah stood there, bathed in the freezing moonlight now streaming through the windows. She wasn't just Sarah anymore. She was the cabin. She was the centuries of love that ended in blood. Mark slumped against the locked door, the fight draining out of him. He looked at the woman he loved, now a vessel for something ancient and hungry. She smiled, and her teeth were black, sharp points. "Happy wedding anniversary, Mark," she whispered, her voice filling his head, bypassing his ears entirely. "Now we can be together forever." The snow will eventually stop, and the cabin will be found. But Mark and Sarah are already part of the history here now. If this lover's nightmare chilled your blood, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you wouldn't miss the next video we drop. Do these to join our circle around the fire. Comment below with the concept you'd like to see turned into a horror story next. We're always watching, and we'll see you in the next shadow.